Hi, welcome to Prospect Don and Second Cities collab for our first through 16, the only lottery picks mock draft. We're just going to be doing our picks side by side. So this is going to be really fun. We're going. Second City, welcome on. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This should be pretty fun.
For sure. I'm excited. So you have the Islanders with the first pick. Um, you're going to be first up here. Who do you think the Islanders are going to take?
I think uh I think they're probably gonna go Schaefer here. Um I think that's a pretty obvious one.
Why do you think the Islanders are going to go Matthew Schaefer here?
I think they go Schaefer. I think it's just the safest pick. I think he's probably the best defenseman in this draft. There's rumors, obviously, since they fired Lou Lamoriello, that they might be going into a rebuild. Guys like Barzell, Dobson might be getting moved and stuff. I think Schaefer's just a pretty safe pick if you want to kind of reset your franchise with the first pick.
With the Islanders going into a rebuild, do you think that there's a chance that they select James Haggins and then or trade down to say three with the Blackhawks?
I
Blackhawks pick up Misa. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I My last video I did about the Hawks, I kind of had that idea. Um, it would be interesting to see if that happens. I've also seen like they might take Schaefer here and then try to trade uh, either Barzell or Dobson to Utah
Mm.
to maybe get Hagens. Um,
That's actually a really good, interesting thought. Not to for Utah, but Connor Bedard's best friend was actually Matt Barzell 2 years out of the or a year and a half out of the draft. So that could be interesting to pair him up with Bedard just to get him a friend. But it would be interesting to see what the Islanders would have to also give up. But Utah, that's an interesting spot for a trade out as well. Because I mean they got gifted. The Islanders and Utah both got gifted the first and fourth picks. So that would be pretty cool to see. But definitely check out Second City's stuff on YouTube. He always does really good stuff, and that's a really cool idea for Utah to get that or trade assets for or get assets for the Islanders pick. So I'm gonna go with Matthew Schaefer as well here. I think that Schaefer is just the obvious pick as well. And I know that there's been rumblings about potentially James Haggins, but I just don't see that kind of happening. I would love it if they traded with the Blackhawks. I don't know how much the Blackhawks would have to give up, but I think Schaefer and Dobson, if they do decide to keep Dobson, would be a fantastic top pair for 10 to 15 years. Schaefer's an elite top pair defenseman. He said his player comp is Cale Makar, so I think that it's an easy first overall pick. So
yeah,
for the second overall pick, we have the San Jose Sharks. Who do you think they're going to take?
I think they would be taking Michael Misa here. I think they would take one of either Schaefer or Misa, whichever one the Islanders don't pick. I think that's their guy. Um, I think they're probably the two best talents in this draft by far. And if you look at where San Jose is at this point, it's still just best player available for them. So I think
Yeah,
they would go Misa here.
yeah, I completely agree. Misa, do you think Misa would be centering the line with Will Smith or play on the first line? Like, would it be celebrating Will Smith and Misa or Misa on his own line with like Eklund or someone like that?
That's interesting. I'm not really sure because I haven't watched a lot of Sharks games. But I mean, listen, with the point San Jose is at right now, they can experiment pretty much as they want. They can have him
Yeah.
up and down the lineup, just see who he fits with best and stuff. So they don't have to play them, exclusively on one line or together or whatever. You know what I mean?
Too many good top line players is a really good problem to have for the Sharks. I think
Yeah.
that they missed out on getting Schaefer, but I think Michael Misa is of a number one pick if it was the Blackhawks. So I think that's a great pick. I'm actually also gonna go with Michael Misa. My dogs are going crazy now, but I think it would be a fantastic trade or fantastic draft to get Misa.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, he was an exceptional status player at one
Yep.
point, albeit he kind of had a slower start in his junior career, but still phenomenal talent.
I completely agree with you. Exceptional status. Michael Misa, like without a doubt, overcame the point production in his first year at the OHL. Yeah, Michael Misa would definitely be a perfect fit for the Sharks. We're gonna go with the third overall pick now, so that I can mute real quick. And okay, who do you think the Chicago Blackhawks are gonna take?
Well, it's weird because I saw your tweet yesterday and immediately got very concerned, but if I was Kyle Davidson, I would be taking Porter Martone here. Um, Look, he's kind of what the Blackhawks need. He's big. Yes, I know apparently he doesn't play the most physical game, but that's, I think, a product of playing in the CHL, especially in the OHL or the QMJHL as opposed to the WHL. I think that's something he can grow into, and I think he could be a phenomenal line mate for Bedard. But if they don't take him, I'll be very sad. Unless they can get
Yeah,
Misa somehow.
I completely agree with you. I know that tweet sounded an alarm for a lot of people, but it was basically because I have seen a lot of Desnoyers and Frondel to be projected to go to the Blackhawks. I would love either Haggins or Martone. If we can somehow get out of the draft with one of those two players, I would be ecstatic at this point. Martone's skating woes are a little overblown. I think that he is a player that is Matthew Tkachuk-esque, so I think it would be perfect for the Blackhawks. I'm also going to go with Porter Martone as well. I know the first three picks are the exact same, but I mean, when you look at the fits and stylistic plays of all these players, it just fits per team. Schaefer's going to go with the defenseman. I mean, Islanders are like need to go with Schaefer. Sharks need to go with Misa, in my opinion, and then the Blackhawks walk into Porter Martone. If we get Desnoyers or Frondel, just to speak on this point a little bit, I think that it would have to be we would have to view the overall draft class. So say at 29 we get Vaslav Nestrasil or someone with offensive upside as well, with Dan Noyer. So I think that's also a point. Let's go with Utah at four. Who do you think Utah Mammoths, the new name, is going to take?
Okay, so I would go with James Higgins with this pick. I know the fit there isn't perfect, um, but I do think he's better than the rest of the players available by quite a margin. I think if you look at his junior career, I know his NCAA season this year wasn't spectacular, but going point per game as a freshman is still a pretty good accomplishment and stuff. Um, yeah, I would go with Higgins. Um, I'm interested to see who you're going to say here.
Well, James Higgins with 37 points in 37 games, I think he did have a good freshman year in the NCAA, but it didn't surprise anybody. I think it's a really good pick for Utah to get a player like James Higgins. I actually, to play devil's advocate, I'm going to go with Anton Frondel. I know Anton is somebody that the Utah Mammoths actually like and have done a lot of scouting on, as well as interviews and meetings. So I'm gonna go with Anton Frendel. I think they lucked out in this position and didn't think that they were gonna get him. So Anton would be a really good pick here. But
Yeah,
James Haggins is a fantastic fit for the Mammoths. I mean, I really like Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther. They have a lot of pieces.
yeah, definitely. And this is the thing too, like obviously it's too soon to like know stuff and what's going to go down at the draft, but
Yeah.
like this is a spot that Utah could easily trade out of and stuff too, and then you don't know who's going to actually end up picking fourth. Like
Yep. Like I
I
completely
feel,
agree.
yeah. So I kind of just went for best player available there, and you can move him as an asset if you want to maybe try and attract a star, or you can kind of do what you want.
Well, like I look at two teams, like Pittsburgh with their 11th pick and then potentially the New York Rangers 12th because it's conditional. And let's say They have the 11th and 12th picks. I think Utah saw themselves at 14 the entire year because that's what they did. Would you want two picks near where you have been scouting the entire year and try to get two players that you've liked for a long time? Pittsburgh would get a player like James Haggins or Frondell, maybe even Martone to play with Sidney Crosby or learn from him for his last 2 or 3 years in the NHL. This would be a year out, but or Montreal Canadiens. So that's a really good point you make there. And then for Nashville Predators at 5, who do you think they're going to take?
Roger McQueen. Uh,
That's a really good one.
yeah, I really like Roger. I like the size. Again, kind of like Martone. I haven't watched a ton of him, but I've heard that he's not very physical as a player. But again, I think that's something you kind of coach into players and that they see as they move through the levels and stuff, that they have to be more physical and more willing to forecheck and stuff like that. Um, I think the skill is there. Um, I think he's going to be a very good player. I think if he didn't get hurt this season, his stock would be a lot higher than it currently is. Because he's one of those guys like the whole 5 through 10 of this draft, you really don't know who's going where and who's going to be available and stuff. It's pretty open this year.
I completely agree. When I talked to Roger McQueen, he said that his player comp for himself was Ryan Getzlaf. So I think that's perfect for like what any team is going to do. But Roger McQueen could have been the number one pick in the entire NHL draft. Like definitely top five, but this guy has 6'5" skill. You see Cam Robinson's tweets, very high on him, but he has some of the most potential in the class. So I actually think that he could be a Kirby Doc or Beckett Seneca type of riser in this class that not a lot of people are talking about. So that's a really good pick for the Predators, who really need that upside there with the way Stamkos has gone. Offseason haul did not turn out what they wanted. So for the Predators, for me, I'm actually going to take James Haggins here. I know he could be gone at this point, but I think that the Predators would like a center, and I think the playmaking ability of James Haggins would be really good for the Predators. So I think that would be a really good pick for him. He was obviously the number one player consensusly for multiple months, but he didn't have the season he wanted. But I think the Predators luck out there. So for the Flyers at 6, who do you think they're going to take?
So Flyers at 6, I went for Des Noyers. Is that how you say? I've seen different ways of how you
Day
pronounce it.
Norier? I think
Day
Day Norier.
Norier.
I
Day.
think so.
Sorry,
I'm
I
not a
don't.
French speaker.
Yeah, I don't speak French. Day Norier. Yeah. Uh, he's got some size. He's 6'2". He's still pretty I think elite prospects had him at 172 pounds, so he's got to grow into his frame a little bit. But the production was there this season. It's the QMJHL, so are the numbers a little inflated? Maybe, but I think he'll be a pretty good like all-around center at some point. So I think he's
One of
just a
the
good piece for Philly.
I completely agree. A lot of Philly fans that I've talked to, they really want Day Norier or Frondell, which is surprising to me. Just because like I thought they would want James Haggins to fall or Porter Martone, but it has been Day Norier because he plays that perfect role for Mitchkov, where Day Norier would be a fantastic defensive forward on that line with Mitchkov. If we're projecting him to be on that line and he has offensive upside, I know the Q isn't really the best major juniors league, but Dan Norier is probably the best player in there. So I think it's a great value for them. I'm actually going to pick Dan Norier as well, just because of how much I know that Flyers fans that I've talked to, scouts wise, they really like him. And I believe that his brother plays in their system as well, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so I
Oh well,
think that
there.
would also be really cool.
Yeah, there you go. That's always nice. You get
Yeah,
to play with your brother and stuff.
I think it would kind of be cool. I don't know how good he's doing, but yeah, having family there is always a good thing. So for the Bruins at 7, a team that was just a couple years ago the greatest regular season team of all time. Who do you think they take at 7?
At this spot, I have Frondell going
Okay,
here.
that's a really good one.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah.
where I have Frondell in this draft. He's just such a weird prospect to project. Um, I've seen like people are either super high on him or they're just really low on him. I don't really know what to make of him. His production in the Swedish leagues has been good and stuff. The main thing I've seen and I've watched a little bit of, he is really bad in transition, apparently. Like he needs to work on that, otherwise he will bust in like the NHL and stuff. But if he could figure that out, maybe it's bec in Sweden they use like the Olympic size rinks, right? So I don't even know if that would help or hurt him moving to smaller rinks in North America. But
I actually think that would help him. Um, when I was talking to Milton Gastrand, he had talked about Anton Frondell and also multiple Swedish players said that he was the best player they've ever played against. But Gastrand said that in the SHL, it's a lot harder because you're not you're very far away when you're at the boards, so you can't really shoot. But in the NHL, you can turn and shoot from almost anywhere. The smaller ice will help a lot of the Swedish players. So actually, that's a really good point you make that I didn't actually think about. The transition game for Frondell, which I've seen on some charts, was like a 14 in red. Like that could
I saw one
severe
where he was an eight. Sorry to
eight.
interrupt you.
Yeah. No, go ahead anytime. An 8 or a 14, I mean, just that is absolutely crazy when Michael Meese is a 99. So, in some charts, but that's just not even NHL caliber. But if it's because it's the SHL, I'm hopeful. I'm not high on Frondel, full disclosure. I'm not high on Desnoyers, full disclosure, in top three. I don't think either one is a top three prospect, but I'm just praying, like Kyle Davidson, he is so good at evaluating prospects, and the team is so good at this. So maybe I'm seeing something that, or I'm not seeing something, but I just think that Porter Martone or James Haggins is the clear cut top three pick. I think there's four players that are a top three pick in the class, and neither one is Desnoyers or Frondel. Makes Frondel really good is his sniper ability. I mean, he has that attribute attached, so he's a great shooter, might be one of the best in the entire draft class. It's just not enough for me to take him third overall. I would want us to trade back and get some picks or young players, but I think he would be incredible for Boston. They need a center, so that's a really good pick. For me, Boston Bruins, I think Victor Eklund here would be a player that's just falling, so I'm going to take him. Not that this would be like this isn't really a fit for Boston. It's more of best player available. And when you're picking top seven, actually, yeah, I'm gonna take Roger McQueen actually, because I know Don Sweeney has watched Roger McQueen live multiple times this season, and he really likes him. So actually gonna say Boston Bruins. He's
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
sorry.
gonna say Roger McQueen. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like Roger McQueen almost fits the stereotype of like a Boston Bruins player, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Like
I actually agree with you.
big with skill,
Yep.
you know. So I could definitely see it. And you brought up Eklund for a second. I was actually about to say I actually like Eklund better as a prospect than I do Frondell in a lot
Mm.
of ways. I think he's more dynamic than Frondell. I just think NHL teams would value Frondell higher than Eklund at the moment.
I actually completely agree with you. Like, let's say Sharks are at 5 in this class. I think Victor Eklund would be completely on the board for them. So it's basically team based in this class, but I think Victor Eklund might be a better prospect, like you said, than Frondell. Every time I watch Victor Eklund, but every time I talk to a player, no one brings up Eklund. It's always Frondell. So maybe Frondell is just doing things that don't show up on tape as much or in the highlight videos or anything. Like maybe it's just like the way he plays, it's harder, But I'm with you. I think Eklund is an incredible player. And in going back to Roger McQueen with the Bruins, I think Roger McQueen, who's a 6'5" center, right-handed, you can't make those in a lab. Like that's a very far and very little amount of supply on those type of players. So I think he's going to get drafted a lot higher than a lot of people believe.
I was just gonna say about McQueen last thing. Like at a minimum for McQueen, that's a guy you can stick on your power play and just say, go stand in front of the goalie, and he'll put up points.
Yep, completely agree. He had 4 goals in his first game, and everyone was saying first overall pick, first overall pick.
Yeah,
And then in his eighth game, he got hurt.
yeah, I remember going into this year, it was like Higgins, Misar, Martone at 2 and 3, and then like McQueen. I don't think Schaefer was really even
Schaefer was at
considered
5.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, Schaefer wasn't even considered to be the number one pick.
Nope. He broke
Or
his
this,
collarbone, and then he was the number one pick. Even though I interviewed him and he was a great person, and I believe he's the number one pick. I'm just talking about in scouting circles. It went from him